They were all frozen like mannequins. I looked up and I saw an egg-shaped object, silver, and it had a massive windscreen on the front of it. This was no helicopter. This had no landing gear. It didn't have a propeller. It didn't have any doors.
Yeah.
But as I'm looking at it, I see the two beings inside this craft. And I see it drop about 5 meters. Bang. The next memory I have is we're all down on the bottom steps. We're looking at each other with confusion and asking each other like, we were on the roof. And before my head even hit the pillow, my hands didn't touch the pillow, I just felt something grab me around my ankles. As soon as that happened, I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And I look at the foot of the bed and I see a hooded figure about 4 foot in height, just standing there. And I assumed that's the one that grabbed my ankle. I'm looking at this creature and it looked horrific. It looked scary. As I look over, I see what to me looked like a female, and the male was over near my shoulder. Then I saw the big almond-shaped eyes, like I'm talking bigger than a horse's or a cow's eyes.
Black?
Massive. Black. Massive. And as soon as I looked in his eyes, that was the first thing I noticed. It was as if I fell into a void, like a dark space. And my neighbours, who I grew up with, he actually called me. He said, my brother Tony and I walked out to have a cigarette in the backyard. And he said, we looked up and in the sky there was he said it was a triangular craft. You could not see any stars. He said, when you looked up, you just saw pitch black.
I think this is the most important case, and I maybe I go on a limb saying that, but I can't think of any other case that involves proof, essentially, or at least very strong evidence pointing in the direction of hybridization.
Hi, my name's Aaron. I'm a commercial fisherman out of St. Bernard, Louisiana. And one time, out on the edge of Gulf of Mexico, I witnessed an extremely large black triangle craft intercepted by 2 pairs of fast jets out of NAS JRB New Orleans, which is a large naval base. And they circled this thing for like 40 minutes. And they also had a large, slow-moving fixed-wing plane circle it as well. And then they left, and it stayed there for a little while, and then it just blinked out.
Hey guys, we just dropped a brand new line of Area 52 graphic tees featuring Lacerda, Errol from the Prison Planet, and the Men in Black. Each one's got its own color. Lacerda comes in eucalyptus, Prison Planet in solar yellow, and Men in Black in steel blue. You can also grab them in charcoal if you want something a little more subtle. And for the first time, we've got charcoal V-neck tees for women as well. So go check them out now at area52.shop before they're all gone. Enjoy the video. Welcome, Peter Khoury, to the Skiff. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for not only joining me here, but thank you for traveling here. An arduous, 22 hours of traveling to get here?
Yeah, long flight, but happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Glad to have you here. Peter, your case to me is one of the most fascinating cases, not only to me, I think to a lot of people, but you've been exposed multiple times to these experiences. But one obviously in particular stands out a lot from all the other cases that exist, and that is DNA evidence of a run-in with non-human intelligence. And that's something we're going to get to, and I'm very excited to talk about that. I'm very excited to talk about your stories and, what you're doing now. And so, again, thank you so much for being here. Peter, to start off, let's go back a little bit. Now, I've read this book. If you haven't read it yet, check it out, Hair of the Alien by Bill Chalker. It's a great book. Really details your story, what you've been through, and also a couple of other sort of tangentially related cases, involving evidence as well, with especially the abduction phenomenon.
Yeah.
But your first recall of something happening actually was only triggered later in life, your memory of it, but it actually happened when you were like 7 years old?
Yeah, I always remembered it, but I just didn't know what it was. I always knew that that thing, whatever it was, happened, and not knowing where to, what pigeonhole sort of to label it or put it in. I was a kid. It didn't bother me. It was something that I experienced. And it was always in the back of my mind. Like I always knew that we had this experience, me and my friends and cousins. I didn't really have the opportunity to speak to them at the time because, we're kids. We didn't understand it at all. And what made it difficult as well was the fact that they were switched off. And
So let's go to that experience. From what I gather from the book, this is just a place that you and your friends used to run to sort of like play tag or whatever it was. You guys used to push through this door on this building and hang out on this roof. Is that correct?
yeah, it wasn't just that roof. It was everybody's roof.
I see.
Every house. We lived on the coast. And
This is in Lebanon.
it's in Lebanon, yeah. In the early 70s, I'll say late 71, early 72. And it wasn't like if you hear people now, you hear someone say, "Oh, my kids are on the roof." People would just freak out, to be like, you're negligent, you're letting your kids go on the roof. But over there, it was a flat roof. It was on the coast, so you're looking at water views, and a lot of people would grow grapevines, and they'd use them like cubby houses. And most families would sleep up there in summer, under the stars, and it was something we loved doing. There were some houses, like my brothers in particular, kept pigeons. So it was just great to go up there. And also we had a water tank containment on top as well, which was gravity fed. And we used to use it sometimes as a swimming pool. If my mum was going to recycle the water, I say my mum because my dad was working overseas. And I hardly met my dad or knew him when I was growing up till the age of like 7. And it wasn't until we migrated to Australia that I really got to know that he was my dad. And my dad to me when I was growing up was a visit every 12 months or so, a 2-week visit from Australia to Lebanon. And I'd walk in and there'd be this strange guy sitting there, and I'd think, who's he? And I got told he was my dad.
Wow.
Yeah. So what happened? It was summer. School in Lebanon. You have 3 months straight off school. The whole of summer. And as kids, we'd obviously, we'd play cowboys and Indians. You'd run amok through summer. Your parents. It was a neighborhood. It was friendly. Run in the streets, go into the field, and climb up fig trees. And try and build cubby houses and. We made our own soccer field. Like we actually cleared all the land, drew the lines, we built the posts. And this is kids from the age of about 7 to about 15, 16, which my oldest brother was. So we had 2 teams, and it was the little kids, and we wore a red T-shirt, and the older kids wore a different color, and we'd compete against other neighborhoods in our town. Mm-hmm. And this one particular day, we were just running around in the street, with little wooden guns, cowboys and Indians, pow, pow, trying to speak English, mind you, which was funny. Like we'd heard it on TV, so we just, talk gibberish and think that the only thing we really knew was hands up. So, we're playing, and one of the kids, there was probably about 7 or 8 of us, and one of the kids just out of the blue just said, let's go and play on the roof. And it was the Amar family. Translated, it means moon, the moon family. And without any hesitation, everybody started running across the road towards their house. And as we running through to get to the property, to the gate and enter the property, I looked behind me, and there was my little cousin. She was probably a year and a half, 2 years younger than me. And I felt really bad that she was running last. She was tiny, So I slowed down and let her get in front of me. And as we went through the gate and up the side of the house, all the kids were running. They started to run up the stairs, and it was one set of stairs, landing, and then the door. And as they're running through, I'm running up the stairs towards them, and I could see them running through the door. But usually when we went through that specific area and that door, because of the weight of the door, it was so heavy. it'd slam shut on
Right.
its own weight. So when you run through, one of your friends would go through, and then the next person behind them would have their arms out to try and stop this door from knocking you out, basically, or hitting you. And I remember seeing them just kept running. The door didn't come back. It didn't close. And it was on my mind that any second it's going to come back and knock someone out. So my little cousin went through, and as I was running through, I had my arms out in front of me, bracing for this door to hit me at any time. And it didn't. And as I ran past it, I remember looking back and seeing it up against, like, open. And it didn't have a spring on it. It was just the weight of the door. And it was sitting on a frame, steel frame, which on the ground, it was about 4 inches off the ground. So you had to step over it to get in there. And I was expecting it to come. The amount of times it should have closed would have been, I'd say 4 times maybe, and it should have been pushed open, but it wasn't. It stayed open as if some force has kept it open. And as I ran past it, I remember looking at it thinking it might hit me side on or something, but it didn't. And then as I look in front of me, I noticed that all my cousins, well, there was 3 of my cousins and about 4 of my friends, and or our friends, and they were all frozen like mannequins, as if halfway through their step or movement, they just froze. And wherever their hands were, wherever their leg, knee was raised or something, they're frozen in that position. And I thought it was a game, and I thought I'm the last one up the stairs. So obviously I'm in. They're playing a joke on me. So I'm walking around, and they're still, like, no movement whatsoever. And I thought, okay, I started to tickle them around the waist, tickle them on the throat, on the neck area and that. And what I was looking for was, obviously they're going to smile. They're going to, you see the creases in the eyes, the crow's feet or whatever. You see movement, you see a glitter in someone's eye. Like when I'm looking at you, I can see life in your eye. When I was looking at them, it was blank. It was just honestly like looking at a mannequin, just nothing, no movement. No, I couldn't even see them breathing. Couldn't see any glitter in their eye or anything. And I probably went to 3 or 4 of them, and I couldn't get a reaction. And I thought, okay, 1 or 2 might be good at it, holding it, not ticklish, but one of them has to be very ticklish, and no response. So there was a older kid. His name was George. George Fadous was my brother-in-law's family name. And he was probably 3 years older than us. And I walked up to him, and he was taller than us, obviously. And I tickled him, and I got nothing. And then as I went to tickle him under the throat, I had to look up to reach up to tickle him. And as I looked up, I saw about 30, I'm pretty good with measurements because I was in the building game. Probably 30 meters above us was an object. And now these days, I'm hearing a lot about egg-shaped objects, where back then, when I first got into the UFO field and started researching that, I hardly heard anybody talk. Maybe Officer Samora saw one landed in a desert, and he saw
there's like a few cases in France as well. There's like here and there a few little,
very rare though. And I looked up and I saw an egg-shaped object, big as my neighbor, the house that we were playing on their roof. They used to have a VW Bug, Volkswagen, and I'd compare the shape and size to it, the size at least, and it was the perfectly shaped egg, silver, and it had a massive windscreen on the front of it that was darkly tinted. And imagine the egg with the pointed end up and the rounded end down the bottom, and most of the front of it was a tinted windscreen, very dark tint, but I could see 2 creatures inside, like very thin, very tall. Couldn't see any features, just a silhouette of them.
Like long arms?
Very tall, very slim, yeah.
Did you remember the shape of their heads? Do you remember?
Yeah. Well, the object was on a 45-degree angle, so it wasn't like they were sitting in a helicopter.
45 towards you?
Away from me, with the pointed end away from me and the rounded end towards me.
How strange.
Yeah. And it wasn't like they were in a helicopter and the pilot sits forward and, the object was leaning back, and the way they were sitting, it was strange. But what I noticed when I looked at them, I was the only one who could move. I was the only one walking around and the only one who could look up. So as I'm looking up at this thing, I was in a trance. I was like, didn't understand what it was. It definitely wasn't a helicopter. I mean, we used to see helicopters all the time, and they'd fly around and drop propaganda, and as kids would run around and pick up all the different color paper.
What kind of helicopter normally?
Military.
Yeah, military.
Definitely military, because we'd see, a soldier in full uniform sitting at the door with his legs hanging onto the landing pad. We were very aware of what a helicopter looked like. We saw them maybe on a daily basis, And this was no helicopter. This had no landing gear. It didn't have a propeller. It didn't have any doors.
Yeah.
It was just completely different. And it was very shiny, very, very shiny. I could see the sun glistening off it.
Like chrome or
chrome.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
wow.
Very shiny chrome and the dark windscreen. But as I'm looking at it, I see the two beings inside this craft. The one closer to me, so it would have been on the left, would look at me and then look back at the other one. And the other one was always looking at me, but every now and then he'd turn his head and look at the other being. And this happened for, 30 seconds to a minute, where it's like looking at me, it was confusion.
What's your thought process here as a young boy? That would terrify me. I would be so terrified to witness that. What's your thought process here? Is it confusion? Is it surprise? Is it humor? Like what's going through your head?
More confusion, not humor.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No.
Not humor, no. It was confusion. I didn't know what it was, and not being able to see features, just seeing a silhouette made it a bit more frightening or, concerning.
Sure.
I didn't know if they looked evil, if they were, I just couldn't tell.
Did your mind connect the fact that it was there and the children were frozen, or is that something that later on in life you kind of put two and two together?
No, right there and then.
You knew that?
I knew that this object
was causing this.
Was causing this. And the way they were looking at each other, and it was like, back looking at each other and looking back at me, and it was like they were concerned, as if whatever affected my friends didn't affect me.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling I got, like, why isn't he in the same, situation as them and frozen? And as I'm looking at this thing and no one's moving around me, they're all still, and I see it drop about 5 meters. And it dropped twice on 2 different occasions, and it got closer and closer. And
how would you describe that drop? Was there it was an instant drop? Was it slow? Was it bouncy?
No,
just straight, like a step.
Like just a drop and stop. It wasn't like movement or
it was
shaking or moving, flying or anything. It was just there 1 second, and then bang, there the next.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I'm still looking at this thing, and when it got closer, I was a bit, standoffish, thinking, oh boy, is it going to land on the roof? And then it dropped again a second time, so now it was probably about 20 meters above us, where originally it was about 30. And I'm looking at this thing thinking, it's going to land on the roof, I don't know what it's going to do, but it's definitely trying to land. And bang, the next memory I have is we're all down on the bottom steps. No one saw it. All my friends, nobody saw anything. So we're at the bottom of the steps, and there was 3 of us, I believe, sitting, and then the rest were standing, leaning on the railing. And straight away, we're looking at each other with confusion and asking each other, like, we were on the roof. We were just playing on the roof. How did we get here? No one could rationalize how 1 second we're on the roof and the next we're sitting down at the bottom of the steps. And as we're sitting there and we're questioning each other, we hear our parents calling out in the street. Now we're inside the house in the doorway, bottom of the stairs, and some standing there. And we hear our parents calling out. So one of the kids stuck their head out the door and just said, "Oh, we're over here," thinking nothing of it.
Yeah.
And then parents came in, and there was 3 sets of parents, and they walked in. They said, where have you guys been? When they saw us, they were like a bit shocked. And they're like, where have you been? And we're like, we're up on the roof. We're playing on the roof. And I think they might have thought, well, being mischievous or playing doctors and nurses and just being naughty, and, we didn't want to admit or own up to anything. But we weren't. We didn't do anything wrong. And I remember when they were asking us, where were you? Every time we say we were on the roof playing, the parents would smack their kid on the butt, on the back of the legs. Don't lie, where were you? And we're like, we were up on the roof. And then one of the parents said, you couldn't have been on the roof we've been looking for you for over 2 hours. We're calling out your names. Why didn't you respond? That was their thing.
Whoa.
There was no thought of an object or anything. No one saw anything. I'm surprised people in the neighborhood didn't see this thing, because it was there for a while and it stood out so much. And when the parents were questioning us, and they said, we've been looking for you for over 2 hours. Where have you been? Now, there was a guy that lived in the town who used to have a whole bunch of keys. He'd walk in the street and he'd have I'm talking 100, 200 set of keys on him. And they used to say he broke into houses. That's why he had all these keys. And some thought we didn't know what pedophile meant at that time. You know? I'm talking 60s. And they were like, did you go to that guy's house? And he lived, where he lived, you had to go down the stairs off the street, down into like a basement type thing, but off the road, off the footpath, sorry. And we were like, no, we would never go there. Why would we go there? And they were really questioning about that, thought he might have been taking advantage of us or something, but we hadn't been there.
Yeah, like you were like drugged or something. Or
he took advantage, got us to go in there and we were just lying about it. So once everyone's parents got involved, we were grounded, we were separated, we couldn't play. We didn't know what grounded meant at the same time then. We were just told you're not allowed to play with each other anymore. For about a week or so, maybe, nearly 2 weeks.
You're all punished.
We're all punished, for lying. Apparently we were lying. We didn't know how to explain it. My friends didn't see anything. My cousins didn't see anything. I was the only one who saw something. And, within, I'd say, 2-3 weeks, forgotten. Completely, like,
yeah, of course, you're a kid, you move on.
Yeah. It wasn't something that I had nightmares about or I couldn't sleep, but I always knew that it happened.
Yeah.
And it was a memory that I had, a conscious memory that I knew something happened, but I just couldn't explain it.
Yeah, and for them, like, you can't remember what you can't remember.
That's the thing.
Like, it's nothing. So how do you remember nothing? Two things. One, did you ever bring this up to any of them, your cousins or any of the people? Have you ever brought this up since then?
You know what? I went to Lebanon in 2000.
Yeah.
And a couple of my cousins that were with me at the time were there. And it was funny, actually. My cousins came from Beirut to visit because we were there. They came to see us. They hadn't seen us nearly, I think it was 27, 28 years.
Yeah.
And we're all sitting there and I brought it up. I asked my cousin, who's a year and a half older than me, and his sister was the one that I let run in front of me, so his younger sister. And we're sitting down at the patio and we're talking, and I said, listen, when we were kids, something happened. I don't know if you remember, and I told them the scenario, and I think because they were frozen and couldn't move or look up or anything, they didn't recall anything.
Yeah, there was no.
But one of my cousins, and in 2017, she passed away from it really young, passed away from cancer. And she, as we're sitting there talking, she just broke down crying, just started crying. And I didn't know why at first. I didn't know it was UFO related or anything, And she said, I don't remember anything happening then, but she said, recently, a few years ago, her and her friends were driving and they were on a little country road where it was more dirt, nothing around, no houses or anything. It was just an open field and they're driving. And she said she looked out the window and saw a grey alien standing there. And the way she described...
She said grey alien, or she just... She
said grey, she said a grey creature.
Oh, wow.
She used the word monster more than creature. Yeah. A grey monster standing at the side of the road. And the way she stood and put her arms out, that's their posture, and it caught my attention. And I wanted to ask her a bit more about it. And she said she was screaming at the driver to stop and go back to see if it's still there. And she just broke down crying and couldn't help herself. Like, she just cried and cried and cried.
Wow.
So we stopped talking about it, but that's the closest I've come to discussing it. But that was in 2000. And, this experience happened in the early 70s. And when I visited them in 2000, a few years had gone by and none of it, I still remembered it, but, the ones that were frozen had no
It was
recollection.
uneventful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was disappointed a little bit because it would have been,
good confirmation.
If someone else had seen something, yeah. But I think if you're switched off, you're switched off.
Yeah, and you know, again, after a few weeks, memory lapse. Like I look back on my childhood, and it's just a bunch of memory lapses. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's all it is a bunch of empty spaces
Yeah.
between, you know, good moments or whatever, bad moments.
It's true. I mean, I recall a time where we used to just pack a lunch. Everybody would grab food from their place, you know.
Yeah.
And we'd go out in the paddock, and we'd set up a tent, and our tent was pieces of wood with a rope, throw a sheet over it, you know, make it a tent. And
We call those forts.
yeah. And we're all sitting in there, we're, you know, rolling up sandwiches, having something to eat and that. And it got to dusk. It was late in the day. And all of a sudden, this field just lit up. The tent just lit up. Everything lit up. Like, I mean, brightest light I've seen. It was like, you know.
Like a white light?
Yeah, like a very bright, the whole area seemed looked like daylight, like midday. And I remember all we did was drop everything and just start running.
Right.
We didn't see anything that scared us. It was just that intense bright light. So we're running, and as you're running, you're seeing your friends get further away from you because they were faster, and you were concerned. You know, you're like, oh my God, am I going to be the one? What's
Am I the
happening?
slowest? Oh no.
Well, who knew what was happening? You know, I wasn't thinking aliens or anything. It was just a strange experience to have.
How old were you then?
Probably, I'd say seven.
That would have still been in Lebanon?
In Lebanon, yeah. So they're the two memories that I have of being in Lebanon and having something happen to me that later on in life, I connected the dots and thought, okay, that object
might be connected.
Well, that egg-shaped object, when I started hearing about other cases and other stories over the years, I realized, yeah, that's exactly what I saw.
Wow, that's and that's an interesting precursor to what ends up happening to you later in life for multiple reasons, not only because of the types of entities or even the paralysis, but the fact that you seemed to have, at least at that moment, some type of immunity to their consciousness suppression or whatever was inhibiting their movement seemed to not work on you that time.
I believe that, and I believe that's why I have the conscious recall. I know a lot of people...
Of the other experiences.
Of the other experiences. I think people have the experience and they think it's a dream or a nightmare.
Yeah.
Where me, because they don't have that control, I think I get to remember a lot more than others would.
That's really interesting. And I want to talk more about that when we get to, you know, some of the later stuff. For now, you end up moving to Australia. Your family moves to Australia?
In 1973, we followed my dad out here and, we migrated.
Out there.
Sorry?
You said out here.
Out here. Yeah,
in Australia.
In Australia, yeah. Yeah, got to watch out. But my dad was here before us for a few years, and then brought the family out. And I've got to tell you, but sitting on the plane flying over Australia, I fell in love with it from the air.
Really?
Yeah, I was just a little kid. And I got spoiled rotten on the flight by the air stewards. They'd come and play games with me when they had nothing to do. They'd sit and spend, you know.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really, they really looked after me. And I remember sitting at the window and just looking down at houses and the fields, backyards, swimming pools. And almost every second house had a swimming pool in their backyard, you know. And just seeing the different colors of greens and yellows in the grass. And the fences and separate, it's just, I don't know, I'm looking over this land, I'm thinking, I like this place, you know, we hadn't even landed. And since then, I love the country, I love Australia, I love my heritage, where I come from. That's my parents, you know, I was born there, so I'm Lebanese, Australian, you know.
Yep.
And so when we migrated out here, there was nothing that triggered, you know, me to think, anything's going to happen here or...
No, but you moved, that would be 7 years or so after Westall happened.
Right.
Also.
Right.
So you're you know, that pocket of 60s to even 80s, there was a lot of activity in Australia.
Yeah, it seems so. Well, now that I've researched
now that you've researched it,
I know. There's one thing I want to bring up. I probably sometimes I think leave it in chronological order, but there's something interesting that happened when Bill Chalker was researching the book.
Yeah.
He went and spoke to my family. I was there at the time with him.
Okay.
And he was speaking to my brother, my oldest brother, Sam, and him and my dad were present. We'll talk about that in a minute. My 88 experience, 1988.
Yep.
And my mum happened to walk in the room and she said, "What are you guys talking about, you know?" And my oldest brother said to her, "Well, he's researching what happened to Peter." And he said, you know, that experience he had and he saw things, because my brother saw me being floated out the hallway and he was frozen. He was so scared because he couldn't move to help me. And he thought that that was my soul being taken. He'll never see me alive again. And it really scared him. And where he was sitting, actually, the back door and the front door line up, perfect alignment, and he could see all the way through, but he's paralyzed in his chair and he's seen me get floated out by three beings, and it freaked him out a bit. I didn't know about that. He didn't tell me. He's telling Bill this and I'm listening to this and I'm, you know, like freaking out because he never spoke to me about it. And that's the thing with my family. We don't talk about this stuff. We're Maronite, Christian, but not overly religious. You know, we do go to church. My mum used to take us Christmases and Easters and that, and, you know, tell us to pray before bed or whatever. But, I mean, I work at a church now, and that's why I've got to be careful too, with, you know, mixing the two up. But I remember when my mum walked in, she was really interested, and my mum's not the type, you know, she's never spoken about this stuff at all. And she just added, I wish we recorded video of it, but Bill recorded an audio and took notes, but we didn't get a video of it. And now my mum has dementia really bad, and she's like stiff as a board in a nursing home, you know. She can hardly, I don't think she ever recognizes me because she calls me her brother and so on. She hardly speaks now. But yeah, when she walked in and asked, and she said, "Oh, when we were kids, we used to see them all the time." And we're like, "What? You see what all the time?" And she said, "Oh, our parents used to tell us they're flying plates that belong to Israel." The Israelis.
Flying plates that belong to Israel.
Flying plates that belong to Israel.
Whoa.
Like spy planes, but she called them flying plates.
Because you would see air activity from Israel in Lebanon.
Definitely.
There was a lot of military presence there.
Definitely.
So they just assumed it was Israeli flying saucers?
Everything was Israeli.
Wow.
Spy, everything.
That's like kind of like in the 50s sort of Cold War era, the United States blaming everything on Russia.
On Russia, exactly. Right. Vice versa.
Yeah.
And anyway, as she's standing there talking, she says, "Yeah, I remember Peter was 22 days old, so he was a newborn." And she said she was sitting down at 3:00 in the morning on the side of the bed breastfeeding me. And she said she saw an alien in the window. Like, that blew me away. My mum had never, ever mentioned it. She didn't even know really what the research Bill was doing about the book. She didn't know. And she was like, "Yeah, it was 3:00 in the morning. I was breastfeeding my son." And she said, "I saw an alien in the window." And she said, "It wasn't perving at me." She had this feeling it wasn't perving. She was really calm about it too.
Yeah.
She said, "He wasn't perving at me. He was looking at my son. So his eyes were watching me, not her." And she had that feeling like, I'm not being perved on, you know.
Sure,
she was comfortable, And she said that it didn't look like any man from the Middle East who might have walked past and saw a window open at 3 a.m. and thought, have a look. She said he was slim. He was wearing a black turtleneck, black or dark blue turtleneck, and had milky white skin. Big blue eyes, big beautiful blue eyes. She's the way she related to him, but it gets to me a little bit, upsets me, because for so many years she's kept this inside of her, and it just happened to come out at that moment. And so she said that he had white hair, and it was parted from just above his ear, like on the side, and parted over, not a comb over, because he had hair. It was just odd, funny shape to comb in the hair and that. And she said she wasn't scared. She didn't, like any woman would cover up and, you know, feel like they're being watched.
Yeah.
She said she just fell asleep, went to bed, put me down, put me to sleep. She fell asleep. And in the morning, she got up. My uncle was a security guard in the town. There was 2 of them. And they were very, very trusted because they would look after everybody's businesses. They had keys to everyone's business, the cinemas, everything. And she went and spoke to him the next day. We live on a seaport. It's got 2 ports in our town. One for white cement, off-white cement, and one for grey cement. And she asked him to see if any foreign ships, like Australian or Westerners, blonde hair, white, whatever, if there was any ships docked on the ports, and there wasn't. She told him what had happened at the same time, and just over time, just forgot all about it and never ever spoke about it to anyone. Yeah, my mum never sat down and said, "Oh, when we were kids, because she knew when I started getting into it." My second oldest brother, he'd give me a hard time about it. He was real skeptical. And funny thing happened. One day, it was my sister's birthday, and we had 3 priests from the church, St. Charbel, come to celebrate with us. And as they're sitting at the table, I've walked in. They're at the dining table, and my brother's relaying this experience. This is a skeptic, right?
Yeah.
He gives me a hard time. And he's telling them, yeah, and I have I'm paralyzed, and then something sits on me, sits on my chest, and I can't breathe. It's like the old hack syndrome I later, read up about.
Sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis. And I'd never heard him talk like that about anything to do with the subject or anything like it. And when I walked in, I was stunned. I thought, am I hearing this,
Yeah.
And I said to him, hey, you give me a hard time about what I've experienced, and here you are telling a similar story. Like, what's going on? And he was like, oh, you believe they're from up there.
Yeah, right.
Now, what do you believe? Whatever's happening to you, where do you think originated from? Like, he wouldn't give an answer to say, where is it evil? Is it, from underground? Is it from above? He wouldn't say.
Yeah, interdimensional.
Whatever. He just had no answer.
Yeah.
He's just telling the story. So the priest says to him, look, when you read the Bible, don't just stop mid-sentence or, just go to a full stop, read the end of the paragraph or a sentence, stop, do the sign of the cross, bless yourself, and then put the Bible down. And then one of the priests says to my brother, asks him, what do you mean your brother Peter thinks they're from up there? And he said, he thinks they're from outer space or aliens. And the priest said, that's really interesting because we have a parishioner who's having these experiences as well. And he's seen hooded figures, which is mind-blowing for me.
Yeah.
He's seen hooded figures, but he relates it to religion. He thinks it's like St. Charbel.
Sure, yeah. I mean, they dress like monks.
Yeah. And there's like 3 Saint Martatla, I think. I couldn't remember the third. But there are 3 definite saints that wear the hoods and the robes. And I was just blown away that my brother, who's the biggest skeptic and gives me a hard time, would come out with something like that. And moving in back, we moved to Australia now, and I had a few years go by when nothing happened. I can't remember anything. And then 1988, I had been living on my own for about 5 years. I met an older woman. I was 18 years old. I met a woman. She was 29. She had 2 kids, one 5, one 7. And I was with her for 4.5 years. We stayed together. She was an exotic dancer at the time. And, it sounded interesting to me. Like, so yeah, we dated and we lived together for a while. And I had just moved back home because I reconnected with Vivian, who I dated at school. We were close at school. We were more friends before anything.
Vivian, your ex-wife?
That's my ex-wife. Yeah, I've known Vivian since 1981, and we separated in December 2016,
right,
2 weeks before Christmas. And she had come back from Greece from a holiday where she got engaged to someone here, had a falling out, and he actually physically harmed her, and she punched him back and broke his nose, and they broke up. So she went to Greece to get away from it. The day she came back from Greece, she called my parents, and I was living with this woman. And my mum didn't like the woman I was with. Obviously, she's older than me, has kids. I'm only 18 years old. And as soon as she heard Vivian's voice on the phone, she gave her my phone number straight away.
Yeah.
And Vivian called me that day. And we hung out for a couple of weeks, and I said to her, look, is there any chance for you and I, if I turn my life around? And she was like, yeah, for sure, So I decided I'll break up with the woman I was with and moved back home. And I was probably home for about 9 months at the time, 1988. And I remember this one particular night when this experience happened. It was one of the first times I spent time with my dad. I get upset about this. It's emotional. There's a couple of things that get me, and for some reason, I'm a tough guy. I can handle a lot of things, but there's some little things that just trigger me.
Yeah, I get
and
it.
Emotionally get me. But yeah, growing up, I didn't know my dad at all. As I said, I'd see him come in for 2 weeks and then leave, and I didn't know who he was. Yeah, we're sitting down watching this TV show. It was about 11 o'clock at night. My dad was sitting on a 3-seater lounge. I was sitting on a single. That's where my brother ended up sitting that night. And as we're sitting there, TV show had just started, and it was about 11:15. So it was about 15 minutes into this movie. And my dad and I sitting there watching it, and all of a sudden my brother, who was asleep in my bedroom, walked out. It was as if he was triggered. Like when I think about it and look back at things and understand how people who have experiences do get affected in different ways. Some get switched off, some, are involved. But anyway.
Some of them get sleepy.
Well, that's exactly what happened. So my brother walks out of my bedroom where he was asleep, and he said to me, go and watch TV in your room. I want to sleep out here. And it didn't make sense to me, and I thought, okay, I don't mind my privacy. I'll go in my room. And I was disappointed that, my dad and I were watching this movie, and now I've got to go and leave him on his own with him. So I'll go into my room, and I close the door behind me. And when I talk about this, it's like a video just, being played right in front of my eyes, and I can just see everything visually. The smells, I can react to everything. But anyway, I walked in the room. I sat down. There was enough light that I could see, but then I turned the TV on, and it obviously lit up the room a bit more. But I had this little color. When I walked in, I saw a little monitor you had there, and it was very similar in size to the Toshiba color TV that I had. And it was sitting on a coffee table against the wall, and then you had a little bit of room between it and the bed. So I sat down, and I sat on the side of the bed. So my knees would have almost been hitting that coffee table that it was sitting on. So I just leaned over and, hit the button to turn it on. And it was a color TV. So yeah, the room lit up a bit. And as I did that, not thinking at all, I crossed my legs, my right leg over my left leg, just crossed it over. And as I went to lay down on the bed, I put my hands crossed them like that, put it at the back of my head. And before my head even hit the pillow, my hands didn't touch the pillow. I just felt something grab me around my ankles. And as soon as it touched me now, I felt like it was this part of the hand, the index finger and the thumb and the webbing, and just grabbed me. But it could have been a device, because as soon as that happened, I just felt pins and needles crawling up through my ankles, through my calves, through my legs, all the way up through my body and right through to my head. And when it hit the top of my head, the way I described it early on was that it felt like thousands of ants crawling through my scalp. But then I later learned it's like static electricity.
You couldn't move.
As soon as that happened, I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And I'm lying in bed.
This is, by the way, before you fall asleep. This is like,
I'm not asleep.
You just turned the TV on.
I've just turned the TV on.
You're not even hit the bed yet.
No.
So this isn't like for people thinking this is like, some hypnopompic or hypnagogic sort of state.
No chance.
Yeah.
No chance. I was still upright.
Yeah.
hadn't closed my eyes. And that's the thing. I think if I was asleep and my eyes were closed,
you might have dismissed it.
I would have dismissed it. I wouldn't have seen anything.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been able to open my eyes because
Right.
I couldn't move any other part of my body. But luckily for me, my eyes were open and I hadn't slept, like I wasn't asleep. So I sat on the bed. As I moved my legs and put my hands up and went to rest, bang, it grabbed me. And it straight away when this paralysis hit me, I couldn't move anything at all. But by that time, my head was on the pillow, so I was rested.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, what is this? You know, why am I getting this static, all this electrical stuff coming through my body? And I realized I couldn't move. And for someone who was into, martial arts and played sports, not being able to move that's the first time it's ever happened to me too. I was scared. I was like petrified. And, I'm sitting there and trying to rationalize, why is my head all burning up? Or, it feels really strange and staticky and, and numb. It was very numb. And I look at the foot of the bed and I see a hooded figure about 4 foot in height, just standing there. And I assumed that's the one that grabbed my ankle. And it looked bloody robust. It looked like the way I described it then, and I'll get to something that looked exactly like it years later that I saw. I'm looking at this creature and it looked horrific. It looked scary. Like it looked to me evil. And I'm looking at this thing and it was wearing a hood, the robe with the hood, and the hood made its head look a lot bigger, And I'm looking at this thing and I can see big, big lips, like, women pay a lot of money now to get these lips pumped out. And they had big lips, big, wide, flat, like not a flat nose, but a wide nose. Deep, round, deep black eyes, but round, not the oval shape you see. These were round and deep set. Very wrinkly, deep wrinkly forehead, like deep wrinkles. And as I'm looking at this thing, I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is the devil. This is evil.
You described the skin as being like shiny and black, right?
It was like a shiny black, dark, very dark blue.
Yeah.
Tints. It depends.
Mm-hmm.
Like on the cheek, it looked a bit more bluey than black, but everywhere else it looked black. And I don't know if it was,
the hood
something reflecting of it or, And, but they looked scary. Like if you see them in a dark alley, you're going to turn and run the other way.
So 3-4 feet tall, 4 or 5?
About 4 feet tall.
About 4 feet.
4 feet tall, not too tall at all. And
the robes were what color?
Black.
Black.
Yeah, black. But they were all over. It wasn't like just a hooded thing. This was a robe all the way down to there.
Like a monk's robe.
Like a monk's robe, yeah. And hence why some Lebanese people say, oh, you saw Saint Charbel or you saw Saint so-and-so, and I say, no, what I saw didn't have a beard.
Yeah.
It wasn't, But anyway, I'm thinking evil at this stage, right?
Sure.
And then I look over on the right side of the bed. Now I could move my eyes. That's the only thing that I could move. So as I'm looking straight down the foot of the bed, I can see this being, and then I get a sense that there's something here. So with the corner of my eyes, I look and I see 2 more, exactly the same, identical. I couldn't.
Right.
No features.
No difference.
No difference whatsoever. It was like they were
clones
off a production line. Yeah. And they looked exactly the same, and they were closer to me because they were right there. The other one was at the foot of the bed, and that petrified me. I thought, oh my God, they can, they've got me. That's it. I'm done. And
was there a smell?
Not that I remember.
Okay.
No.
So nothing distinct.
No.
Okay.
But as I said, I lived on my own for about 5 years, and I got up to a bit of mischief, and they say people run around with the wrong crowd, and some people back then would have said I was the wrong crowd. Nothing evil, just mischief here and there. I mean, one of our relos, it was a hardcore standover man in Sydney. Everyone knew him. He eventually was taken out. Things like that shouldn't scare me. I've been through a lot worse, and I've had a lot of situations where, other people would be dead, and
Well, what are you thinking in your head right now? Are you thinking this is some type of like atonement for being mischievous? Are you thinking like
when I got this paralysis?
Yeah, because this is otherworldly. This is not
well, I've got
normal.
three beings around me that looked horrific to me, and I was petrified.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, this is evil. This is the devil. And I'm not thinking UFO, even though they're right there. I'm not thinking alien. I'm not thinking creatures. I'm not thinking, all I'm thinking is, oh my God, this is evil. This is the devil. And because I was paralyzed, I was trying to call out to my family members. I was trying to scream out to my dad and my brother, who were the closest to me. They were in the next room. And I could think of their name. That's what people don't understand when people try and explain telepathy. And some people go, oh, it's very hard to explain. No, it's not. It's not hearing voices. I'm not hearing voices in my head, a voice, a tone. It's a feeling. It's a knowing. It's something goes in your brain, in your mind, and you know exactly what it's saying to you, but you don't hear anything. It's just this feeling of knowing that you're being spoken to, you've been given instructions. And I'm lying there and I'm trying to move. I'm fighting with all my might to move, to do something. I wanted to get up. I wanted to kick. I wanted to punch. I wanted to fight. And I couldn't do anything. The only thing I could do was move my eyes. And at one stage, I'm thinking, my parents are going to walk into this room in the morning to wake me up, because obviously can't call out. I can't speak. So they're not going to hear me. They're going to go, oh, wake him up. It's, he's been sleeping all day, whatever. And they're going to know that I'm paralyzed, and I'm paralyzed for the rest of my life. That's how I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be in a wheelchair. Like, that's where my thought process was. And I'm thinking, oh my God, when they walk in, and then the thought comes to my head, Lebanese community, very judgmental of things. They're going to be like, oh, it's the lifestyle he lived. He's been paid back. God's paying him back. He's been punished. It was that sort of thinking. And
this is all going through your head, like flashes.
That's what's.
You're like, this is it. I'm either dead or paralyzed or something.
Yeah, definitely paralyzed and could be dead any second, And as I'm lying there petrified, like I'm really crapping myself, because I know how to handle myself, but there's nothing I can do to defend myself. They were in total control. I'm paralyzed. I'm frozen. And as I'm feeling this intense feeling of dread, and I'll never walk again, which is a hard thing to think about, And as I'm lying there, with the corner of my eye on the left side of the bed, there was a wardrobe against the wall, little gap, and then the bed that I was on. And with the corner of my eye, and when I looked, I noticed that there were two completely different entities. And this is a thing with me, like, my story's been out there for 33 years now, and I listen to a lot of people talk about it, and they get it so wrong. And like I'm talking to you now, I've done this before. People only have to listen to what I've said, and they'll get it accurate. They'll get it close enough. They might not get it 110%, but they'll get most of it. But the mistakes that are made and the discrepancies, it blows me away, because it's like they're talking about 3-4 different stories and making it one. And it annoys me, because I've guinea pigged myself and put myself in the public domain and spoke about this in the hope, and we'll get to that, in the hope of helping other people that have had these experiences as well. It wasn't me doing it for me, trying to, sort of understand what's going on just for me. But anyway, as I look over, I see what to me looked like a female, and closer to my shoulder. Female was about at my waist, and the male was over near my shoulder. Because I'm lying down, they obviously look a bit taller.
Yeah. I'm
looking at someone that I thought was about 7 foot.
Wow.
Maybe 8 foot tall, very tall. And I'm lying down. So yeah, they look a little bit taller than probably what they were, but that's how I saw them. And the female, you could tell she had breasts, weren't very big or anything, but you could tell she was female. And they looked very, very similar, but her features were a little bit more feminine,
Mm-hmm.
There was subtle differences, and I mean, it's hard. Other nationalities will go, oh, you all look the same, or these people all look the same.
Sure,
And
yeah.
I get it. I can understand that. And it was similar to that. They looked the same, but I could see distinct features that were different. Anyway, she was goldish in color, very slim, very thin, very tall. Goldish in color. Now, I believe it was like a jumpsuit, but it was all over. It was
see.
Yeah, it wasn't like, just a face showing and this thing was a suit. It was all over. Her whole face covered everything. Then I saw the big almond-shaped eyes, like I'm talking bigger than a horse's or a cow's eyes.
Black?
Massive. Black, massive. And didn't see a nose, didn't see a breach for a nose, but I saw 2 holes for nostrils. And there would have been a slight raised, nothing like ours, And on her mouth, I didn't see her mouth because she had what to me looked, well, now we're all accustomed to masks, surgical masks, because we had to wear them for COVID and so on. Our masks are wide as 4 fingers?
Yeah.
Well, these were probably wide as 2 fingers. And when I looked at the male, I understood why. She had hers over her mouth. She was wearing it. So I got the impression she didn't want to catch anything, or more so give me anything.
Right, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. And so she had it, she was wearing it. And
was this wrapping around her head, or like, because she
no, it was just across her mouth,
just like a Band-Aid or something.
Like a Band-Aid, but then it did have a very, very thin, almost like a fishing line thing. It wasn't like a thick band or anything. And I look over to the one closer to me, and as soon as I looked in his eyes, that was the first thing I noticed. I looked in his eyes, and I looked in his right eye, and I'm telling you, I've never had a feeling like that before. It was as if I fell into a void, like a dark space. As soon as I looked in his eyes, I was petrified 1 second, sweating, wanting to jump out and fight, wanting to kick and, get out. And all of a sudden, I look in his eyes and it was like, whoa, total calm. I believed it was like hypnosis, and he just took control of me like that. And as I'm looking at him, I noticed that he's not wearing a mask, and where his mouth should be, it was just a line as if you drew it on with a pencil.
A little slit.
Real little, I couldn't even see.
No lips, nothing.
I couldn't see a split in it either. It was just like one line. No lips, no teeth. I didn't see anything like that. What I noted, though, was that he was wearing the mask under his chin.
Weird.
Yeah, he didn't actually have it on. And it was the same size as hers. It was like wide as 2 fingers. But he had it sitting down under his chin, and
was not respecting the COVID protocol.
No. What I got back then was that I've met this guy before. And when I looked in his eyes, as soon as I looked in his eyes, I knew that this guy knew me better than I knew myself.
Weird.
And that's when I go back to being 22 days old and my mum seeing an alien at the window, although it looked human, more human.
There was some familiarity.
So much so that I felt so comfortable from being petrified in sweat. I was in sweat to within seconds.
This is family. This is like somebody I know.
This is somebody I know. This is safe. I'm not going to be hurt. And that's exactly what he said to me. This is telepathically again, so it's not like me hearing a voice.
It's a feeling.
It's a feeling. And I love to use the term. It's a knowing. It's a feeling. You don't hear it, but you know it, and there's no mistaking.
Complete at ease, complete confidence that this is okay.
Yeah, and that's the way they communicate. They don't have to have a voice. It's in their mind, and I find that's amazing.
That's beautiful.
It is. It's a beautiful thing to experience. But
just to interrupt you for a second, are you familiar with Dan Crane or Dan Barish?
No.
So he would have been, I think, I'm trying to remember. I knew he came out in, I think not in the 90s, 96 was it maybe, or he worked at S4 in 96 and came out in 2000s. I might be mistaken here in the timeline, but essentially, this guy claimed to have worked with a being known as J-Rod. They called him.
I've heard of that, yeah.
At S4,
yep,
at Area 51.
Yep.
And that he was a micro biologist or a genetic, he was in charge of basically taking skin samples from this being day in, day out, and he'd established like a telepathic sort of rapport with it.
I've read about it.
Yeah.
I've read about that.
And it knew him,
Yeah.
same kind of thing. But what he describes in one of the interviews is exactly what you just described, that they had protocol not to look into their eyes, because the second you look into the eyes, you fall into them.
That you fall into them.
And he said what they would do, and he's like, literally this is what he says. He's like, this is how they take you in your bedroom at night.
Large, bulbous black eyes. The whites of the eyes had been selected out, so it looked like large pupil, basically. When you look into his eyes, you feel like you're going to fall into his eyes forever.
They entrain on several levels, and they're able to relax you by actually flooding you with natural opiates.
If you would look in his eyes, you'd literally feel yourself falling into his eyes. And then he, after entrainment, this is how they get you to relax in your bedrooms at night. The rogues, if they take you, they entrain to what makes you feel good, and then they flood you with endorphins.
Right.
He's like, what they would do is you look at them and they flood your system with endorphins. So they turn it on in your mind that you're flooding yourself with endorphins, and you're feeling great, and you're feeling elated and good and calm.
Yeah.
But he also said those were the rogue ones that did that. So
Really?
yeah, not sure what that means, but I'll send you a link after you can watch.
I've heard about the story, J. Rod and that, but I didn't link the name to it.
Interesting. A lot of people seem to think that the eyes have everything to do with that.
Certainly. Definitely. Yeah. And it wasn't until Professor John Mack put me under regression, and he saw the difference of when I was, recalling the three beings that looked scary and, evil looking or whatever you want to put it. They looked robust to me. They looked like their military arm. They're their military, and then the others were the scientists. And what intrigued John and caught his attention was there was another psychiatrist, female psychiatrist, sitting in on the session as well. And as he's hypnotizing me, I'm freaking out, and I am actually sweating during the hypnosis. And it was like full recall, And all of a sudden, when I see the goldish colored ones, and I'm looking into the eyes in particular, the male, within a split second, I just stopped sweating, calm. And John was communicating with the other psychiatrists, and they were both saying, he can't fake this. You can't fake sweat. You cannot stop your sweat. He's sweating 1 second, and he goes in total calm the next, and he's not sweating anymore. He goes, you cannot fake this. So that's where, when I'm looking in his eyes and he's got my full attention, because I'm immersed in him. I'm deep.
You're locked in.
I'm deep in there, and I'm thinking this creature knows me better than I know myself. That's the feeling I got. And all of a sudden I hear him say, I feel him say telepathically, calm down, relax. We're not going to harm you. It'll be like the last time. Calm down, relax. We're not going to harm you. It'll be like, and I'm like, excuse my French, but I'm like, what fucking last time? And that stunned me. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean last time? Calm down, like so. As he's saying that, I see him with 3 fingers, not like we would hold a pen, like that. It was more so like that. And it was what looked like it probably was similar to this, just a bit thicker. And it had a flexible tube at the front of it. And on the tip of that, it was like an optic fiber tube, you see on Christmas lights and those funny lights and that. And it had a light on the tip of it.
What color?
White. And as he's saying to me, calm down, relax, we're not going to harm you. It'll be like the last time, relax, calm down, we're not going to harm you. I see this thing getting pointed towards my head right about here.
Yeah.
And I felt pressure, but I didn't feel pain. But I did feel pressure, and I could feel feel it going in, but no pain at all. And as soon as it was inserted in, and I knew it went a fair way into my skull, into my brain maybe, I'm not sure, but I blacked out, right? And here I am about 15 minutes, what I thought was 15 minutes later, because I had been fighting this paralysis all along and screaming out to my dad. Like I'd say my dad's name, but I couldn't voice it, but I could think it. My brother the same, you know, I'd be thinking, Sam, 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 but nothing would come out. So I had been fighting this all along. So all of a sudden when I didn't know what was going on, I blacked out, right? So I jump out of bed, I got my movement, I got my feelings back, and I just sprung out of bed so quick, opened the door to my room, went into the TV room. My dad was sitting as I walked into the room, he was on the lounge on the left. This scared the daylights out of me because I thought my dad was dead. I thought he had a heart attack. I go to wake up my dad. I wanted to know, how long have I been in my bedroom? And I'm shaking my dad, you know, Dad, wake up, wake up, wake up. Nothing, wouldn't wake up. So I was petrified. I grabbed my dad and I slapped him 2 or 3 times and nothing. Like, it was like slapping a bit of wood, you know. Didn't get anything, no reaction, no way. Why are you hitting me? Hey, what are you doing? Nothing. So I went to my brother who was sitting in the single lounge, and I woke. He was asleep as well, and I woke him up. Tried to wake him up. I couldn't wake him up. So again, I slapped him a couple of times, and he came to. And the first thing he said in Arabic, as soon as he opened his eyes and he said, "I feel like I've been switched off."
Oof.
And it didn't register with me then, but when I researched cases later, I realized that's what happens. People around you get switched off. They get put to sleep or whatever. And
Yeah, they get turned off.
they don't remember.
I think Whitley describes that too.
Well, I had my partner lying in bed next to me.
Yeah.
Out like, doesn't remember anything, you know, and I'm trying to touch her, get my fingers to touch her and nudge her and wake her up. And no way could I wake her up. This is another experience. But anyway, trying to wake up my brother, I slap him a couple of times. He wakes up, says, I feel like I've been switched off. And I said, mate, I can't wake up Dad. I think something's really bad. He might have had a heart attack. So we both get up, trying to wake up my dad. We couldn't wake him up. So my brother slaps him a couple of times, a lot harder than I slapped him. Yeah. And I thought, no, that's a bit hard, mate. Yeah. And my dad sort of, he's sitting there and you'd think after being slapped so hard that it'd jerk you out of it. But my brother said, go get a glass of water. Got a glass of water. He put water on his hand and washed my dad's face and slapped him as he did it. I don't mean over slapping him. It was just like, wake up, wake up. My dad woke up, and the scariest part of it all, when I think about it now, it irks me, not a word. Not a word. He didn't ask, why are you putting water on my face? Why are you slapping me? What's going on? Like he does. Did I have a heart attack? Did I pass out? Well, we got nothing. He's just looked at us and like, okay, and just sat there.
Well,
now, I'm talking to my brother, and I said to him, I'm saying to my brother, mate, how long has it been since I've went to my room? And don't forget, my dad and I were just watching a movie. It was 15 minutes, I'd say at most 15 minutes into this movie. And my brother walked in and asked me to swap with him and go into my bedroom, and he wanted to sleep in the TV room, which was silly. It didn't make sense, but I did it. I said, how long has it been since I went to my room? And my brother says, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, which is what I thought.
Yeah.
So as we're talking, we look at the TV screen, and the TV was a blur on the station on the screen. It was just a blur. And back then, about 2 o'clock, around 2, sometimes 3, the station would shut down. All TV stations, commercial, whatever, would shut down. And you'd get a blurred screen, or you'd get a test pattern on there.
Yeah.
And there was a song that went with it. It was Our City of Sydney, My City of Sydney, and so on. And we're looking at the TV, and it's got that going on. It's like a test pattern as well. And the screen is all blurry, and we're like, what the hell? Like, the movie's over. So it was around, I think at the time, 2:30 or something, like 2:45.
So like 3-4 hours later.
3-4 hours later, or at least 3.5 hours later. And When I said to my brother, how long has it been since I went into my room? And he said 10, 15 minutes. That's what I thought. And then we're both looking at this screen. And I said, mate, that movie that we were watching had just started. It couldn't have finished without any of us seeing the end or knowing what's going on. And I said, look, I'm going to go get a glass of water. I'm going to put it next to my bed. And if I get up in the morning, that glass of water's there, then something happened. And I went and got a glass of water, went to my room, sat it on the bedside chest, and went to bed, got up in the morning, and I was, honestly, before I opened my eyes, I'm thinking, no, it's not going to be there. Please, 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 it's not going to be there. It's going to be a dream. It's all been a dream. And the glass of water was there. So I thought, oh, crap. Anyway, I went over, I had a shower, and as I was drying up, I was going to go and pick up she was my fiance at the time, Vivian. I jumped in the shower, and as I came out, I'm drying off, and I felt something burning on my right shin.
Before we get to this, Peter, you had mentioned a little bit prior that when interviewed by Bill Chalker, your brother had seen you floating.
Yeah.
Was that this experience or a different one?
That's this experience.
That was this experience.
Yeah.
And he didn't tell you that.
Didn't say anything.
So you're sitting here with conscious recall of seeing these beings.
Yeah.
You're telling your brother something's weird, something's up. Your brother, meanwhile, also has his own experience that he didn't tell you. You're both holding on to this.
Yeah.
Until years later.
2004.
And can you walk us through what your brother saw? I think now might be a good time to sort of bookend that.
Yeah. Well, my brother said he was sitting in the chair that could see all the way from back door to the front door, so the whole hallway.
Yeah.
And he said he saw me floating out of the room, like levitating, lying on my back, floating. And he saw 3 creatures, 1 in front and 2 to the side of me, and they were taking me out towards the front door. And
Did he describe the creatures?
No, he just...
Yeah.
They were short. He didn't say they had hoods on or anything. He just... Yeah. I think he was just overcome by it. He just said, I saw 3 creatures, or whatever he called them. He might have referred to them as creatures rather than beings. And he said, and I saw my brother floating, and they're walking beside him. And he said, I thought that's my brother's soul, and that my brother died, and I'm never going to see him alive again. And he reckons it petrified him, but he couldn't do anything. He couldn't move. He was paralyzed. And he was watching me get taken. And the funny thing to add to that, a few years later, there was a documentary being played on TV. And it was about my experience that I'm talking about now, the 1988 experience. And my neighbors who I grew up with, and one of them was the first guy I sat in 3rd class. We had just come to the country, right? So they started me off in year 2, and then 2 weeks later, they said, no, he should be in year 3. I don't know if it was a little bit advanced or what, but they moved me to year 3 a few weeks later. And he's the first one I sat next to, and only because his parents were Lebanese. He couldn't speak a word of Lebanese, but they put me next to him thinking he can help me, assimilate and so on. So he was the first person I spoke to at school. And years later, we just happened to buy a house, 1 house away from his parents. So they were 110, we were 114. And after that documentary aired, he actually called me and he said to me, mate, that story that was on TV recently in 88, he said, my brother Tony and I walked out, and his name's Michael. He said, my brother Tony and I walked out to have a cigarette in the backyard. And he said, we looked up, and in the sky there was he said it was a triangular craft, massive. He said, mate, it was bigger than the 3 houses put together. You could not see any stars. He said, when you looked up, you just saw pitch black, couldn't see anything. And he said, I never, ever forget it. And then about 2-3 weeks later, I ran into his brother who had just moved back home into their family home. And I was driving past and saw him out the front, hadn't seen him for a while. So I pulled up to say hello. And I saved that kid's life twice growing up. Once on a motorbike, he nearly hit his bike hit an electrical box, and I ripped him off the bike before it hit. And another time we used to pull the branches down on the tree, hang on them and let go. and he went upside down, got caught in his nose and mouth at the branch, and let go because he went to grab for his face and nearly got, he would have been a bad fall. And I grabbed him and broke his fall where his brother moved out the way, and he always rubs it into his brother. Peter saved my life. He tells my nephews now, and when he talks to them, your uncle saved my life twice. Like he,
Wow.
still says it. Yeah. And anyway, he said to me, he goes, mate, Peter, that show the other day, he said, I remember my brother Michael and I were outside having a cigarette, and we looked up and there was a giant object hovering above your house, the neighbor's house, and our house. Now, nothing happened to them. They didn't experience any abduction or anything like that, but they had a conscious recall of it happening.
That night that you were
That 1988,
visited.
yes. And they never said that to me before. I think when they watched the show, it triggered it. Anyway, so my brother's talking about seeing me being taken, and he thought he'll never see me again, and so on. And this all came out when he was talking to Bill, researching the book. But
at the same time, your mother's telling you things.
This is all coming out in one day.
And for you, because harboring such a troubling experience with obvious social, repercussions for coming out with this, that must be very difficult. It must have felt so good to hear anything.
Oh, to support it,
even from the neighbors, from your brother, from your mom, like anything. Like that must have been, because that's 26 years later or whatever it is.
That's right, and that's what caught my attention. It was the fact that so many years had gone by, but these two brothers, it was etched in their brain, and they actually brought it up and, made a point of telling me, like, mate, we saw a craft above your house and our house and the neighbor at that exact time. So when my brother says he saw me being taken out, maybe I got taken out onto the craft. And I've been under regression with a couple of, I eventually started a support group, and I just wanted to know that the people we were working for, the hypnotherapist and the counselors and that, were in it for the right reasons, not a business. I wanted it to be more about them offering help. And I know with two of the regressions I did, one was with Professor John Mack, and one was with Frank Wilkes, who was one of our first hypnotherapists in the group. From that experience, the only thing I can remember being taken on board a ship is being on a table, and to me it looked like the table was nothing like this table. It was as if it blended out of the wall or out of the floor. It molded in. Like now we can print 3D stuff, and thinking about it now that we have this 3D technology, I think that's what they do. I think they print their craft to do the task that it's supposed to do for whatever, environment or whatever.
Built to spec.
Yeah, it's built to specs, and it's for that exact use. And I remember being lying on this table, and I was trying to think to myself, where is this table from? Like, where is it coming from? Like, there's no leg support in it. It's just blends into it's like a one piece thing. And then I noticed the lights, and looking above me now, I can see where the lights are. This thing had the lights, the floor, the table, everything was lit. Like it had its own light.
Like the walls were glowing?
Not glowing, but they had their own light. It wasn't like you had to switch a light on. It was as if it was a living light, everything just, I can see the light now shining on the wall and lighting the wall up, but it wasn't like that. The wall itself was emitting light, and I couldn't tell where that light came from. But everything, the floor, the table, everything had its own light, a bit different than maybe because of the angles and so on.
Sure, yeah.
But I remember having a whole bunch of aliens around me, chirping like birds.
No way.
But speaking so quick, and always looking at each other. There's always that eye, they turn and look at each other and talking, and birds chirping at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, I'll never remember or understand what you're saying. So don't even try. If you're trying to tell me something, there's no way I'm going to remember it. Yeah. And that's probably the clearest memory I have of being taken on there. But other than that, nothing.
And that came out during a regression with Dr. Mack or with the other?
Both of them.
With both of them.
Both of them.
And that's from that 1988
Yes.
experience. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, there's a few things there to note. One, obviously, the furniture or the protrusions that created this table. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm reminded obviously of Bob Lazar's description of the craft that he worked on, where those what seemed like chairs also protruded from the floor without seams. Nothing had seams. There was no seams anywhere. And Bob was talking about this too, this idea that everything looked molded.
And no sharp edge.
No sharp edge,
No
yeah.
sharp edge. All it was all
Was there a color to it?
because of the light.
Yeah.
Because of the light emitting from it, I couldn't really tell you what color it could have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing to note is the chirping. This is interesting for a few reasons. One, and we'll get to this after, but Whitley Strieber also.
Yeah.
There's like he describes it as like a fast, like murmuring, chirping type sound. There are a few experiencers that talk about this in that way.
Yeah.
One thing that's really interesting, and this came up in one of Whitley's most recent books, which was based heavily on a Reddit document that came to light recently, which we covered on the channel as well. It was this alleged whistleblower who worked on some of the bodies from the crash retrieval stuff.
Okay.
And he was kind of like a biological guy, an anatomy guy, and he had to perform these, a geneticist, I think. And he would, go through the blood and this and that, but also the organs and the eyes and the fingers and everything. And he describes every single part of their anatomy in great, great, great detail and why he thinks they're like that.
Mm.
And when it came to the lung sacs, there was, they were like birds.
Really?
He described them like birds' lung sacs.
Wow, okay.
In the way that they had no vocal cords, and so kind of like a bird. And also it would provide more oxygen because they had 20% bigger brains than we did, and so they needed to fuel this brain, with more oxygen. I just think it's really interesting that we're hearing these, interesting connections.
Does this guy actually talk about them chirping, or is that Whitley?
That's Whitley, but he says they would have made high-pitched noises.
Okay, because of their anatomy.
Yeah, high or low-pitched even as well, that we would not be able to hear.
Well, they were doing it at a rate where
it was impossible.
Oh, it was impossible. And I was thinking to myself, how could they understand what's going, like keep up with it?
Yeah.
But obviously they do. And it was just a bit freaky actually.
I bet.
All this stuff. And I'm thinking, I will never remember. I will never, ever remember what you're telling me. There's no way my mind is going to capture all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if they were trying to tell me something, but I think they were communicating with each other.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a light that was above us. And since then, I've had this claustrophobic thing about anytime I go to a dentist, I'm okay in the chair. As soon as they put this light above me and the dentist leans over, I just get these flashbacks and I, see 20, 30 of them around and I just have got to stop.
Yeah.
And I've had dental treatments where they had to actually put me to sleep to get it done because there's no way I can do it.
How's this light?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Right.
I'm talking about the
close,
dental light,
the
big
round ones,
and they can move them around.
To be fair, a valid place to be scared as well.
Yeah,
but also
who's not scared of a dentist?
Yeah, coupled with
the memory of it. I just associate the light with that experience, and it just overwhelms me. It's like I'm okay, and as soon as it happens, it's like a curtain just goes black.
Yep.
And my whole mind, everything's just black. And flying out here, I suffer from, a bit of anxiety, a lot of anxiety actually, flying that. But I actually did really, really well.
You mentioned that.
And I hope the flight back is as good. I was surprised. And I was telling my partner over the phone, I said to her, I could not believe how easy I got through it. And it was hard work. Like I had to keep convincing myself, reiterate to myself, it's okay. I'll be honest with you and I'll tell you how I got through it. I thought, this is the day before I was leaving. I sat down with my partner and I said to her, this is when I'm going to try something new. And I'm going to think all these people on the plane, couple of hundred people, if shit was to hit the fan, if something went wrong, I'd probably be one of those 2 or 3 people who would take action, who would stand up and do something.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I can do so much more than the other people that are there, men, women, whatever. I can deal with a lot of stressful situations. And I thought, and here they are sitting next to me, not a care in the world. And they're, happy-go-lucky. They're doing it. They're breathing. They're not affected. They're not dying. And
so why should you?
Why should I? And honestly, I think that got me through half of it. And I just felt so good that I did that. And it was comfortable. I didn't feel agitated. I didn't get out of my seat once and walk. Bill Chalker said to me, advised me, mate, just get up, walk through the aisle. He goes, there's those little seats you can pull down where the air hostess and that. He goes, you can sit in that just to have a break. But I didn't leave my seat. I might have gone to the toilet once just to use the bathroom, but that was it. I enjoyed it. It was a real enjoyable
that's good.
flight. Yeah, and I'm hoping, going back will be similar.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
So back to this regression real quick. I know it's a regression. I know that these things can get pretty hazy, but is there anything you can tell from either the attire that they were wearing? Was there something different about these beings? Were these the same golden beings? Did they look different?
No, they were different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen a little gorilla. Well, that's something we've got to get to.
Yeah.
The Whitley Strieber.
That's right. Yeah, because that is pretty much exactly what he described. And not only Whitley. I mean, there's many other people, but I had a guy sit right there, John Ramirez.
Yeah, I've heard of the name.
Yeah, former, 25 years, the CIA SIGINT guy.
Yeah.
He describes the same thing.
Yeah. I've just had a couple of days ago someone described, and he said to me, when you talked about the communion poster, he actually asked, I should pull it up. He actually said to me, Peter, was it a black poster with white writing? And it was, because it was a black poster and it had "They're coming."
Right, yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, "They're here." Just in white writing, "They're here." And then 2 weeks later, and that's what he says too, he was at a bus stop, or he was driving and there was a bus stop. And when the bus moved, it was like he's reporting and that's another thing. There's another comment in there. The guy says, when I heard Peter's story, I thought it was all the researchers I've spoken to over the years have sat together and got all my information and put it together and got Peter to play the role, because that's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah, it's too impossible that.
So similar, like very, very similar. Anyway, one day I go to pick up my, well, actually, let me get back to when I had the shower and I felt this mark on my leg.
Sure.
That was, it was like a bullet hole, Anyway, I'm drying myself up and I feel a real burning sensation on my shin. And I have a look and it was as if you got a cigarette and just sat it on there and burnt me. And it was like a 5 millimeter diameter, about 2 mil deep, but with 3 prong marks, like distinct in a triangular mark, 3 points. And it burnt like crazy. So I'm drying up and I'm thinking, this must be related to what happened last night, right? I get dressed.
Was this the same ankle that you were grabbed?
Same leg.
Same leg that you were grabbed?
Same leg that I was grabbed, but it's not on the ankle. It's higher up on the shin, the mark. Yeah.
Yep.
And so anyway, I dry up and I'm thinking, well, this is strange. And it's red raw, mind you. It's like red raw. It's got, blood on there.
Do you think that could have been like the cause of the paralysis?
No, because that was down around my ankle.
Yeah.
And then this was later. What I got to learn later on, it's a scoop mark. It's what Bud Hopkins refers to them as scoop marks.
A sample.
It's got multiple and they reckon the reason they do it there because they can get hair, skin, blood, bone.
So a scoop mark, yeah. And especially the triangular shape, that comes up a lot.
Three prongs, 3 dots.
Do you have a photo of this?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put it up here.
I think
we'll save it for later. It's in the book.
I think it's in the book. Yeah.
All right, we'll save it for later. We'll grab it later.
Yeah.
You got the colored version.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a colored version. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So you can put that up. Anyway, I got dressed. 6 hours later, I went to pick up Vivian from work. And as soon as she got in the car, she's straight away, the comment was, "What's wrong? What's happened?" She thought I had a fight with someone. And I said, "Look, something happened to me last night. I need to talk to someone about it. I may as well tell you. I mean, who else can I trust more than her?" And we're sitting in the car, and as we're driving, I tell another story, relaying a story to her. And I said, "Yeah." And then he's telling me to calm down. And then he puts this needle in my head. I said it had like a light at the tip of this flexible tube. And he puts it. Now, you've got to remember, I hadn't researched. I hadn't looked into it. I hadn't looked at other cases. So for me, it was just raw, dumbed out stuff, really. Oh, you stuck this thing in my head. And I didn't even call it a syringe or whatever. I just said, oh, this thing. And it hurt going through. Like I felt it go through, but it wasn't painful enough, but I felt it. And then all of a sudden I blacked out. I said I went to have a shower. When I was drying, I felt this. And it looked like a bullet hole. And Brian Wiltshire, who used to have a radio station in Sydney, he was into paranormal stuff and that, but very skeptical at the same time. He actually referred to that mark as a bullet hole. Yeah. He says, it looks like he's got a bullet hole in his leg, so he couldn't have faked that. You wouldn't dig a hole in your leg to fake a story like that. And anyway, as I'm telling her, and I said, yeah, and he put this thing in my head, and I went, touched the area, and it was about this spot right here. And I touched it, and there was dry blood under my fingernail. And I've gone, wow, she's had a closer look. And she said, oh my God, Peter, you got like a donut. And it's inflamed, but there's a hole and there's blood there, dry blood. I said, yeah, and I lifted my jean leg up. As I'm driving, we pull up at a set of lights. I said, you got to have a look at this. And I pulled my jean leg up, expecting it to be red raw. 6 hours later, that's not a lot of time. And she had a look, and it was, as you saw in that photo, completely healed. Well, not completely healed because there was a scar there, and there still is. And when you put your finger in it, it's pretty deep. It's like a crater.
Yeah.
And so I said, yeah. And, when I have a shower, I was drying up and I felt this on there. And she's like, oh my God, you need to go and see a doctor, So I dropped her off at home. Doctor lived 5 minutes from her house. I had been with this doctor for 10 years. But I went in to see her, and there were people in the waiting room as well. And I walked in, and she's known me for 10 years, I've stepped on a nail, and I've gone and you get a tetanus shot, and you move
you're
on.
in construction.
Yeah. If you step on a nail or you get a nail through your hand, you just go get a tetanus shot and move on. Anyway, I walked in, and I said, Doc, there's something I've got to talk to you about. I don't know who to speak to, Yeah, I said, look, I've got to talk to you about something. So I started to tell her the story. And mate, as soon as I said, there were beings in my room, she just burst out laughing like I was the funniest comedian in Australia. Like just laughed and laughed and laughed, hysterical. Back in her chair, I walked out of that room. I actually said to her, Doctor, please don't laugh at me. If you think I'm crazy, send me to a psychiatrist. But please don't laugh at me. I walked out of that room instantly knowing I will never, ever go back to see her again, which was a shame. She was a decent doctor. And as I walked out, people in the waiting room were making comments like, mate, that must have been a funny joke. What was the joke? It must have been really funny. They all heard it. So I left there and I never went back. And
what did she make of the, did you show her the scar?
Yeah. I showed her the mark on the hole in my head. I showed her and she goes, oh, you hit your head on the nail at work. And I said, come on, doctor, if I hit my head on a nail at work, I'd come to you and ask you for a tetanus shot. I said, what about this mark on my leg? It was red raw, like burnt. And now it's healed within hours. And when the scientists got involved, what they said to me was, next time you get a scoop mark, if you do, we want you to scrape it, get a scraping sample, and just store it, because they wanted to know that. See, they think differently than
what kind of
we do.
metal?
No, they wanted to know what compound, what did they use? And they said, Peter, this could revolutionize surgery.
Oh, wow.
Instead of getting stitches, you just, and then you know what?
Yeah, that's a crazy thing to think
Within
about.
6 months, liquid Band-Aid came out.
Oh, yeah.
You put liquid Band-Aid, you don't need to, yeah. And Bill Chalk at the time thought that was a bit,
coincidental.
Yeah. And so yeah, I lost all faith in the doctor. So I went home and I went on a search, mate. It just drove me crazy. I just picked up my phone and I was dialing number after number, psychiatry, psychologists, counselors, anybody that I could. And as soon as I'd say to them, oh, look, I think there were beings in my room. Oh, no, we don't do that. And they don't even give you the courtesy to refer you or to say, no, bang, hang up.
Yeah.
And eventually, which probably was going to be one of the last calls I would ever make regarding that and chasing up that, I spoke to a psychologist in Queensland, and he was the only one to hear my whole story. He said, just tell me. I want to know everything. Tell me. So I told him what was going on.
Credit to him.
Yeah. And he said, look, I've been hearing this from a lot of people, and what I think you're experiencing is related to the UFOs and aliens.
My God.
Yeah, and I was blown away. I couldn't believe what he was saying. Mate.
How old were you here? You were 19, 18?
No. At this time, I think I was around 23.
Oh, okay.
1988
yeah,
experience.
okay, early 20s.
Just after, early 20s. And he said to me, look, there's a group forming in New South Wales. Maybe you should contact them and have a chat to them. They might be able to help you. And that's where I went down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, of research
and committees.
Yep.
The worst thing you can do. That's why Bill Chalker works alone. He works with the Invisible College, but that's why they're called the Invisible, because
they want to remain anonymous.
Yeah, and they're not at each other. Committees can get really
well. The Invisible College is also, for those wondering what that is. This dates back to like the mid 1600s, but essentially the Invisible College, the modern version of the Invisible College, is a conglomerate of really intelligent and industry leaders in terms of like scientists, physicists, everything from microbiology to, you name it, just all these sciences, all the hard sciences, soft sciences, all together. Jacques Vallée often refers to the Invisible College as well in his books, aptly named Invisible College. But it's a bunch of people who get together who know about the taboo and don't want to risk their credibility, their livelihood, their jobs, because these things are at stake when you start to talk about these things.
Definitely.
And so in fear of that, these people get together and they study probably the most fascinating thing on planet Earth, which is, this phenomenon.
Yeah.
So credit to them, credit to these people.
And they do it in their little bunker, They're not out.
They're not for money.
They're not highlighted,
They're completely for science.
Yeah. And that's what we need. That's what science should be about.
There's no ego here.
Question things. Don't dismiss things, And that's what I used to say to Bill all the time. Bill, why don't the skeptics try and destroy my case? Why don't they, if it's one of the best cases, why don't they take it on and question it? But they never did. Look, I took on, Bill was present at the time. It was at the Powerhouse Museum. Barry Williams, who was the president of the Skeptics Association, here's another one that made a comment that alien abductions with females happens due to their menstrual cycle.
Yeah, which is
stupid. It's
so stupid.
It's just so dumbed out. It's not funny. It just says a lot about.
Not only do you not understand abductions, you also don't understand women,
and exactly. So he's given a lecture, he's given a talk, and he made that comment. So I stood up and said, "But how do you explain men?" And he's like, "This is my lecture, my talk. You sit down." He attacked the hell out of me. He knew who I was.
Yeah.
And I said, "Barry, take on my case and destroy it. I'm giving you permission, destroy it if you can. I go, but you know you can't. So you just want to armchair debunking, badmouth the people, discredit everything that's evidence. I said, you can't discredit everything. Now, we hadn't come to the DNA stuff at that stage. This was way back. Yeah.
And we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. And anyway, what rounded off this 88 experience for me was Vivian and I went and picked her up from work. We're driving. And as the gentleman that recently, and look, some people might look at my story and copy some things or fill in gaps that they can't. I can understand that. But it's just too coincidental to be such, the details were just very, very similar. We're driving, we stop at a set of lights. There's 2 buses stopped at a bus shelter, like a couple of bus shelters. And we start to move, the buses take off, and there's a sign there, big black poster, and it said, they're coming, in white writing. That's it. They're coming. And we read it, but we didn't take too much. No, we're like, what the hell's that? You know, an advertisement for shoes or what? Anyway, 2 weeks later, we're near our house in where we grew up. She's only like 2 minutes. She's in Dulwich Hill, and I was in Helston Park, which were next to each other. And we're driving past the local RSL club there, and we see a massive poster in another bus shelter, and it said, they're here. And we're like, what the hell is this, you know? Still didn't know. 2 weeks later, I'll pick her up from work, and there's these buses there. Buses take off. We're still at the lights. The bus has got the green light to go.
Yeah.
And as they move, there's this massive poster, and it's the poster for Communion,
Yeah.
cover of the book Communion, and it's just in your face. There's no denying what you're looking at. You're not thinking, I looked at this, she looked at it before, like she was like blown away. She's like, oh my God, that's what you described. And I was like, yeah, what is it? You know, we thought a movie. I didn't know it was a book. And then later on, posters come out and said, oh, the book Communion by Whitley Strieber, you know. So of course, I wanted to find it, get the book. But being Australia, we're down the line, sort of when you know publishers come out.
This is because this isn't with the launch of the book. This is like a relaunch or like a second print or something, right? That they were promoting.
Probably was, but that was the first time I ever came across this. That image alone took me on a wild search. I wanted to anything I could find on anything that looked similar, I bought. But I was trying to find Communion, the book Communion. It just happened I'm driving, doing a delivery for work, and it was my lunch break, and I wanted to go into a shop and get something to eat, you know, but I'm sitting in the car and I hear an interview by another guy called Brian, but this one was Brian Bury. He did the weather and some stuff, and one was Brian Wiltshire. Brian Wiltshire is the one who made a comment that it's like a bullet hole in my leg. Brian Bury was doing an interview with none other than Whitley Strieber. So I'm in this car park, sitting in my car. My hands were grabbing the steering wheel so hard, I couldn't pry them open, mate. It was just, what the fuck am I listening to? And I'm sitting there and I'm hearing this guy tell my story. And that's where I can relate to this bloke that recently said, I've told my story to a lot of researchers, and I think they all got together and got Peter to play my role and gave him all the information, you know. I'm not saying Peter's faking this, but this is my story, and I can understand that. Because anyway, he's telling the story, right? And I'm captivated. I'm just sitting there stunned. I was supposed to have a 20-minute break. I was there for 45 minutes, just listening to every word. And as he told the story, there was a whole list of things that I can tick and relate to.
Yeah.
But there was a lot more that I couldn't. Like he shoots at them, they disappear, they appear. Other things that happened that I didn't happen to me. And anyway, I decided that's it. I'm going to get this book. I'm going to find it. So I ordered the book, got the book. I've got a picture where I don't know if it's even in this book here where you see Vivian. I don't think it's in here. I'll have a look. She's walking into my parents' place through the front gate, and I went to take a picture of her because she was holding the book Communion, and she covered her face with it. So that picture is actually covering her face.
Hmm.
And as she walked in, she said, "Peter, you've told your story to someone else and they've gone and written
a book about it.
Written a book about it." She goes, "This is your story. This is what you told me." And I was like, "But you're the only one I've spoken to."
You know, that was partially the reason for this book being the New York Times bestseller for 6 months, was millions of people resonated with something in that book,
image caught their attention.
and perhaps hundreds of thousands went, "I know that face.
I know that face."
You know, never before had there been such a striking depiction.
Confronting.
Yeah, and you know, Whitley's story about the having that commissioned by the artist is a big story as well. And there's like he felt compelled to make that the cover, like he had to make that the cover,
right?
So people could recognize it.
You know what I liked about that? If I had an artist come to me and say, "Peter, give me your description. What did you see?" I could not have done it as well as it was done in the book community. I'm sure he had a lot of people influence, you know, different artists. I don't know the story behind the artwork, but the beings, the way they looked, couldn't fault it. The hooded ones, oh my goodness, perfection. The way they're depicted in that story, in that book, and in the movie is exactly what they look like. There's no mistaking anything. There wasn't like, oh, the eye was bigger. It was exactly the same.
Wow.
And it really, that blew my mind how accurate he got it.
Does that make it more terrifying?
It does. Yeah.
When you're like, wait a second, this is real.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Definitely. And that's when I saw that cover. When I first saw it, it was so confronting for me. Even Vivian reacted to it, and she hadn't had the experience. So I reacted probably 100 times more than she did, but I could see it caused a bit of grief in that. But I bought the book and she started reading it before me, and every day without fail, every day she'd read it on the train on the way to work. Then she'd call me when she got to work and she'd be like, "Peter,
read the book."
everything you've said to me. She goes, "Babe, everything you've said to me, it's in this book. Someone has written your story, I'm telling you." Because we didn't know other people had these experiences. We didn't know at all.
Yeah.
So she's like, "You must have said this in front of someone and they've thought, oh, this is a good story. I'm going to write it." And they did. And I'm like, "Look, I haven't spoken to anyone but you and the doctor. You know, could the doctor have told someone?" But I didn't give the doctor too much.
No, yeah.
Yeah, she didn't have too much on information and that.
I spoke to Whitley because I wanted him to, you know, foolishly, I thought maybe I can get Whitley at the same time here and I could have you guys hang out last minute. I should, but you know, Soul Conference was going on in Italy and obviously he's got other plans, but maybe we'll make it happen one day. But, you know, I'd mentioned you and he I think, you know, he remembers your case, but it would have been so cool, you know, to have.
I'd love to sit with him and Travis and, you know, hash up some memories because, we spent some time in Queensland and so on. But, Whitley came across there. We're just friendly, you know. It wasn't like, see, with me, when I'm at a conference or when I don't overwhelm him. I'm not trying to sell you my story.
No, of course.
And that's what I think attracted John Mack to me, the fact that and that's what he said to me after the workshop. We're driving home to my house and he said, "Peter, he goes, what you do is so admirable. Like, I really respect the fact that you're dealing with your experience, but you can help others to help them deal with theirs." And there were things that impressed him, and there were things. It was like because I didn't try and push my story on him, because I wasn't bombarding him with my info. You know, every second I had, "Oh, and this happened. Oh, and they did this and that." No, it was if he wanted to know, he can ask me. Where other people were trying to ram it down his throat. I recall a story Bud Hopkins told me. We're at a conference, and it wasn't my conference; it was another group. And I had a stand with my emblem, like the group emblem, which is a UFO, and at a support group meeting, a human and aliens meeting together. And I had a table, and I had some things there, a couple of books and that. And Bud actually, during to sign his autograph for his books and so on, he came and sat at my table. And the people who held the conference came and said, no, you got to sit over there. And he's like, no, I'm comfortable with Peter. Because I didn't try and push it on him. Then on the way home, we're driving home, and he said to me, you know what drew me to you, Peter? And I was like, what story? He goes, no, the fact that you didn't try and push your story on me.
Mm-hmm.
He said there was one guy who he spent thousands of dollars renovating his home, hoping that Bud would stay at his house.
My goodness.
And that was the last thing Bud wanted.
Oh, my God.
But he said to me, look, he's passed away now, may he rest in peace, but he would have supported me on this 1,000%. Word for word. He said, Peter, with an American accent, right? He goes, Peter, I went to use the bathroom. And while I was peeing, I was at the urinal, I was peeing. This guy brought out a folder and opened it. He goes, he opened it in front of my face. He goes, I couldn't see where I was peeing. I felt so awkward. He goes, like, who does that?
That's the
and
worst.
He said it just turned me off him and his story. And the more the guy shoved that story in his face, the more he withdrew from it.
Of course, yeah.
And it caused a lot of political stuff in Australia about it, because the guy didn't get what he wanted, and he thought, the more I shove it in your face, the more you should want it,
Right, yeah.
And that was the thing with me. A few researchers have made that point. They've got to sort of pry it out of me. I don't go and sit on their lap and go, hey, look at this and look at that. And I pride myself on presenting other people's stories before mine.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to stand up because they won't. And
yeah, absolutely.
You need to give them the strength to do it. And I had a comment yesterday on the phone came through, and the guy said, it was a female actually. She said, I really respect what you do. And I want to thank you for giving a voice to those who don't have one, and that means a lot to me. That's my whole purpose of starting this support group, not for people to, to sell this. And for me, it was, if you've had an experience and you don't want to talk about it or you're not sure, you hear my story, and it's got credibility because it's got, conscious recall, it's got marks, I've got a bit of evidence here and there. And, it gives them the courage to speak out about theirs. They may not go public, but they'll send me information and I'll tell me details about their story. And they say to me, your story resonated so much with me. Thank you. I'm gonna start talking about this, not straight away, but eventually I will. And that was my reason for starting the support group. It was to reach those people who were struggling with it.
Yeah, I will say that's really that's a pretty noble cause, and it's one of the symptoms of this channel as well. And I say symptom because for me, it is not the number one purpose. I'm glad that's happening. For me, the number one purpose, my audience knows this, I'm fascinated by this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a selfish endeavor to, not only figure this out, but to be able to tell story around it and give people a platform to tell their story and be creative. And it's pretty selfish of me. But the symptom, the offshoot of that is people finding solace in the stories, and people coming to me and being like, man, hearing that story or seeing that video changed something for me, and it made me want to share mine, or it made me more comfortable with what's going on with me.
Exactly.
And, that's just, that feels really good to hear.
And you know what I find? The successful podcasters or, group people, they're the ones that, what you just described, that's what drives you.
Yeah.
And I think people can sense that. It's not about getting points and getting ratings. You genuinely feel for it, and you want to get people to express it.
Yep.
And if you weren't interested in it that way,
it wouldn't.
It would probably wouldn't happen the way
wouldn't
it's
last.
happened.
Wouldn't happen.
No. I'm so happy for you. Honestly, I love seeing people succeed, and especially in something that has such an effect on my life. Seeing people like you do what you do, it encourages me to speak about it more, and I hope more people come out and speak.
They will.
The more people that come out and speak about this, I I think the more attention it'll get.
Yeah.
And now with all the whistleblowers and everything that's going, I know they get a lot of criticism, and of course they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
But
it expands the conversation.
Yeah, and I don't see them as having an evil agenda or anything.
Yeah.
You know, they're just telling you what they went through. If you believe it, believe it. I don't think they're asking for a million. Look at Ross Coulthard, for example.
Sure.
Bill and he agree on on some things because for whatever reasons, but Ross has caught the attention of a lot of people worldwide.
Yeah.
And people are starting to come out and, send stories.
He's done a lot for
he has
the conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah, but
there's no denying that.
There's a couple of things my partner was telling me on Sunday night. Some lady apparently sent him a message and said, if you don't get in touch with me within the next 3 hours, I'm going to release.
I saw that going around on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah. You don't hold a gun to someone's head. He's got reasons to what he does and when he does it. But Bill and he have spoken about my case, and he's aware of it, but he's never interviewed me, or he never. So, I don't hold anything against him for that. Like, time might come.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to have a chat to him, not even on air, just to have a chat to him.
Yeah.
But we actually spoke at a conference, but because of logistics and so on and finances, some people actually went and presented at the conference, which I did 2 years before. I went there and did it myself. But then this year, Ross, myself, Bill Chalker, and a couple of other speakers did it via Zoom. And I would have loved the opportunity to catch up with him and have a chat, because once again, I don't try and sell you my story. I don't ring Ross and go, hey, Ross, where there's other people in Australia who have done that, and they're so angry with him because he's not presenting their case as the world's best thing. And they're really angry with him. And I find that sad. Like, you can't expect a person dealing with so many different, like, look what he's dealing with, congressional hearings, Senate.
Sure, yeah.
All these whistleblowers coming forward, and who knows if some of them are playing him and aren't that. But he's got so much on his plate at the moment.
No doubt. Yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in.
Very difficult, yeah. I would like to be there.
Yeah, no, it's one of the reasons as well that, this channel as well I'm not chasing ambulances, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons, because there's a lot of stress that comes with that. And there's a lot of, personally, I'm more attracted to these sort of cases, the cold cases, or the cases that are, from the past, for many reasons. One, because it's pre-digital era. And for me, there's a lot of weird tampering that happens in the digital era. So, it's something more credible.
Yeah.
And there was a pocket of time as well where I think that this phenomenon not necessarily was more rampant, but the similarities in the cases were more apparent. And so there's some connections to be made with those. Whereas after the 90s, things have really shifted focus to the legacy program versus the experiencer and contactee stuff, right? So it shifted, and not to say that that's not well and good. I think that there should be focus there, obviously, and I'm still interested in that as well. Especially we look at Bob Lazar, we look at all these, other ongoings in that area, but there's something truly, I don't know. The one thing that I keep sort of repeating to people recently is, I'd rather speak to a farmer than a lawmaker when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
And, you're just going to get some salt of the earth honesty.
That's right.
And no bullshit.
No spin to it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And whereas, like, I can appreciate someone bullshitting me because they have, things to hide because NDAs or whatever it is, national security. I get it. Yeah. It's just not conducive to an honest and open conversation. And
just be open about it and just say, I have signed NDAs and I've got to be careful what I say.
Yeah.
But here's what I can give you.
Yeah. But I'd also want to speak to someone who hasn't signed NDAs.
Who hasn't signed, exactly. I haven't signed anything, thank God. So
I
don't need to.
Yeah, you want to know what the inside of a UFO looks like. You can ask, a government official, or you can ask someone who's been inside one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's where it stands for me. Okay, so this is I mean, this is 88.
Yeah.
You form the UFO support group.
That was after my 1992 experience.
That was after the 92 experience.
Yes, it was in April, 13th of April, 1993.
Right.
I formed the UFO Experience Support Association, got it registered, and yeah.
It was this next experience that compelled you to do this.
Yep.
Right? But this next experience wasn't something you were talking about immediately, though.
Not at all.
It was still something you wanted to keep really close to you.
I remember people, or Bill Chalker in particular, saying to me, why the fuck have you not talked to me about this? And I said, Bill, my 1988 experience, was a can of worms on its own. I said, this thing is completely different, mate, because the way Bill found out, we'll get into that, but the way Bill found out was just it was just not intended, and it was weird. We were doing, someone offered to do a film about my story.
Yeah.
And they sent 2 females, producers, who were, I've got to put it this way, airheads.
All right.
Had no clue about UFO topic. Couldn't name you one person that's reported an experience or written a book or anything. And it was like a real fun thing for them to go, oh yeah, let's go this guy, we'll talk to him, whatever, we'll, see if we can do something. And as they're talking to me, one of them throws out this comment. All they were interested about is getting the producers a couple of UFO T-shirts.
Right.
And I had T-shirts at the time that said the many moods of an alien. And it was about 18 to 20 faces, all the same, all identical, right?
So you look at that's some funny alien humor.
And so I had one T-shirt for them each, and they were going to present it to the producers. And then one of them says to me, you know what, Peter, if this is real, that pissed me off, because I thought, all this time we've wasted, you're now telling me you don't think it's real.
Yeah.
She says to me, if this is real, it's got to be like a sexual assault case. So there's got to be physical evidence. There's got to be sperm, hair, some sort of DNA. She used the word DNA, which I hadn't heard about DNA very much. It was just, let's face it, Dolly the sheep was cloned after that, very close to, I think, 93.
Yeah.
And the Raelians claim to have cloned a baby as well.
Sure, yeah, the Raelians.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And they presented the...
Yeah, they almost got shut down because of it.
That's right.
Arrested.
That's right, yeah. And that's probably as far as I had heard about DNA.
Yeah.
And it pissed me off to the point where I said, you want evidence? I'll fucking show you evidence.
And then you brought it out.
And I brought it out, and it was in a sealed bag with a sticker on it, and I had written on the paper the date, the time, 2 females, 1 blonde, 1 Asian, just as much as detail I could put on there. And when I showed it to them it was, it's just, it could be anything. It could be Peter's hair, it could be anything. They didn't take too much notice of it. Bill, his ears pricked up, and he was like, why haven't you told me about this? And I said, Bill, 88 is bad enough, mate, trying to deal with that. This is a different can of worms altogether. It's not easy to, and there was a sexual aspect to it too, which was a bit cautious. I didn't want that to come out.
Yeah, there's an element to this which is obviously very personal, and could be easily misconstrued, and which has been easily misconstrued by a lot of people, and been there's these tropes that are associated, and you wouldn't be the first to have gone through some of that. Obviously, Whitley, with his experiences, horrific experiences, but obviously a touchy subject.
Yeah, and talking about Whitley, when Bill Chalker spoke to him about my case, Whitley actually said to him, he said, Peter and another lady from Australia are the only cases where they've mentioned aliens have hair. He said everybody else has no hair, because he had experienced them and they had hair.
Yeah, well, especially
wispy hair, but hair.
And especially and this is something that we can bring up a little bit. I'm reluctant to continue on this story because we're hitting the 2-hour mark, and I'm thinking maybe we save this for round 2.
Sure.
But before we sign off, and before I get to some audience questions here, There's also, I mean, if we're talking about hair, there's also the Ariel school.
Yeah.
Those beings as well, one of them had long hair.
Right.
Yeah.
As in Nordic or
no, as in like gray with like
hair.
long hair.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So very strange. And then,
Very rare.
obviously echoed again through David Jacobs' work.
Yeah.
With sort of the hybrids or the later stage hybrids and, this type of thing. Or not even it would be like the early stage hybrids, which
I think it might have been, I had it mistaken with Boylan, but I think it might have been Jacobs' book where I read about that lady. We'll get into that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that gets me emotionally every time I talk about it because it was human on human.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like interacting with any female unless she's more interested in me than I am in her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't force anything. And to me, that was seeing a lady in tears and not controlling anything break my heart. And I stayed away from trying to find that book again. Like,
The Threat?
It's in my library.
The Threat?
It might be.
Or Among Us or the other, yeah.
Mate, I'm trying to just, I know it's in one of those books, but it's in my library. I guarantee
you're referring to the sexual assault that took place with the
in
with
2008.
The hybrid. Yeah.
No, with the actual human.
Yeah.
It was myself
Oh, I see.
and the human. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was two humans brought together, and there was a sexual aspect to it, and that crushes me.
Hmm.
Yeah, it really does. We'll get to that, and I think it's important we talk about it because it affected me more than my actual alien experiences. And I've had some really deep alien experience. This thing, just we'll get into that. I want to give that just special mention because it's affected me so much.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you opening up thus far. I've got a whole list of things to talk about, and this is pretty much I would say exclusively about the next encounter, which obviously compelled Bill Chalker after meeting him to write the book Hair of the Alien, which not only for me, I mean, is literally, I think the most important case. I think this is the most important case, and I maybe I go on a limb saying that, but I can't think of any other case that involves proof, essentially, or at least very strong evidence pointing in the direction of hybridization and some type of non-human intelligence interacting with us, and so it's very, very important.
And you know what I like about that book? The whole analysis, the whole testing procedure, it's all in there.
Yep.
And I get people making comments like, how can you believe someone who talks about this ship and never presents the evidence?
That's right there.
And I'm like, did you walk past the TV and just glance and heard a word and walked off and then made up all these assumptions? The evidence is there. And I had to correct him. I said, mate, it's all conscious recall, which is, look, let's simplify it. I can be a witness in court, and I have been a witness in court for the police many times, right? I'm the most credible guy when I'm giving evidence to the police. Someone can go to jail on the evidence we give as security guards, relaying, this is what I saw, I saw him hit him, he started, whatever. Someone can go to jail on the evidence we give. But I can walk outside that court 10 minutes after the hearing, look up and see a UFO in the sky and turn around and go, hey, I just saw a UFO in the sky. No one will believe you.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
How can you believe me and send someone to jail over something, but then you don't believe me if I say I saw a UFO?
Yeah, that's a tough question, but the simple answer is shifting the goalpost. It is, when you're presented with this type of information, you have three choices. This always comes down to this, and this is something John Mack talks about in this book. And the three choices are, you can ignore it, you can fit it into the current model, or you can expand your worldview.
Yeah.
And those first two, unfortunately, is all we do, but not only with the, alien topic, or UFO phenomenon,
Yeah.
but also with consciousness work, with all the studies done by parapsychologists at places like Princeton Parapsychology Lab,
Yeah.
SRI. All of this stuff goes through the same thing. And scientists before who've been working on quantum mechanics, look at Einstein.
Yeah.
His general theory of relativity wasn't considered, wasn't actually, people didn't use it. People didn't refer to it until he was dead, until they did the tests afterwards. And that's what science is. It's this constant barricade. It's this constant thing. But you, sir, have science.
Yeah.
Now the conversation changes.
Yeah.
And that's something we're going to get into tomorrow. So you know what? We're going to forego the audience questions as well.
Okay.
We'll save that for tomorrow because I have a feeling a few of them have to do with what's in here. Peter, I want to thank you for sharing all of that stuff today. It's been just so amazing listening to you, and I look forward to continuing this conversation tomorrow.
It's a pleasure, and I've got to say, this is my advice to anybody out there. If you've had an experience, when you tell your story, tell it all. Like, don't hold back and don't think, if I say this, people won't believe me. Just tell it all, because there's someone out there that will relate to it. And no matter how crazy it sounds, it'll get enough attention that it will be investigated. And that's all we want. We want people to investigate the cases. And some of them might be mistaken identity. It might have been something completely different, But I think if you share your story and don't hold back, I know I held back a lot on the sexual stuff, and I still do, only because of my children. And we'll get into it, but there's also a child involved from this, and it freaked my kids out. But yeah, it's hard because it is part of my experience, what they went through. And because I know it's genetically linked to generations, it scares me that my kids may not be able to handle it as well as I did. And I don't want them having, psychological issues and trauma and to deal with it. And so, yeah, I choose not to go into full detail. And for a long, long, long time there, I denied any sexual aspect where, come on, they're naked, they're on top of me, their hair was, or something obviously happened and physically happened. And people can sort of not even read between the lines, just look at the facts in the story and they'll go, oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I've honestly got to just be cautious because it has affected my children. And that's the last thing I wanted, Yeah.
I understand that, Peter. Well, I appreciate you opening up about anything that you feel like opening up about. And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way listening. And that's some great advice is to, tell it all, get it out there. There are so many experiencers, I'm sure, that are holding back small details that seem innocuous and that seem,
but they'll resonate with someone else.
Yeah, you might be like, wait, whoa, what do you mean he wiped the stuff off the skin? And I refer to that because that's something that Whitley brought up that he had told Bud.
Yeah,
and Bud had said, no, it's probably from your dream.
Yeah,
that's probably just made up that they wiped this oil off their skin, and then it comes out later that and he goes, I knew it. See, I should have talked about it.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, I look forward to continuing this conversation tomorrow. And for those folks listening and watching right now, this will go up next week. So feel free to do all the things. Check out, do you want to leave a link to the research group or to anything below that we can put down there, or how to contact you or anything at all?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right.
We can do that tomorrow. And
I'll leave Peter's info down there. And don't forget, if you guys want to check out the membership, like this video, do all that stuff. And we'll see you next week.